based on what you're doing and traveling around, and you've been doing this and volunteering for what, 3 years now? 2 years?
About two and a half.
2.5 years. So people can actually live this way in Ecuador and spend how much per year?
Last year was under 2,450, and this year I'm on track for about 2,000.
You are living on like basically $200 a month.
Yeah.
Hi, can I ask you a favor? Adventure Freaks is growing, but most of you watching haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy this content or find it helpful, hit that subscribe button. It's free and it really helps us continue to bring you more tips and ideas for living better abroad. All right, so today we have a special podcast. We're heading down to the beautiful country. I love this country, Ecuador, with my new friend Steve Wenzel. And Steve is living a truly unique life. He's a true adventure freak for sure. Steve, thanks for joining the podcast, man. How you doing?
Great, great. Thanks for having me on, Ray. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so it's great to meet you. So before we dive into what you're doing and how you're doing it, I've never done a podcast like this. So it's going to be great for the viewers who are looking for an out of box way to live, live abroad. But before we dive into that, Steve, tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and and then we'll move from there. Just a little backstory on where you're from and what you're up to.
Sure. So, born and raised in Toronto or Toronto, Canada, and when I came down to Ecuador 3 years ago, so November 17 was the beginning of year four. Why Ecuador? I've traveled literally all over Latin America, Southeast Asia, parts of Europe. Like you, I've been to a lot of different places. And there's something about Latin culture I can't put my finger on that I find like it just feels more like home than Canada ever did.
Yeah.
So right before lockdowns, I came down here. I was working full time, so I just had a couple weeks, did a couple short trips. Loved the place. I spoke functional Spanish and just really, really enjoyed my time in Ecuador. The people here are some of my favorite people on earth.
Yeah.
And during lockdowns when I couldn't move around, I did a lot more research and looked at my numbers. And I was working as a licensed electrician, and I was having issues with my shoulder, which eventually took me off the tools. And I went, okay, do I start a new career? What do I do? I don't have enough money to retire in Canada. And then I started looking at the numbers and went, I could actually today retire in Ecuador or Guatemala or Nicaragua, any of these places, have a much better quality of life, be living in places that I want to be, not deal with, Canadian winters. And that basically made up my mind. I sold my condo, had the seed money to come down here, did all the stuff you're supposed to do, got my will updated, checked into residency requirements, got all my paperwork together, like all the incredibly tedious, boring stuff. Got on a plane and came down here with a carry-on and a backpack,
Okay.
and right, applied for residency. I did some of that legwork ahead of time, so I was in touch with the immigration lawyer. I knew how much it was going to cost, what did she need, where was she located. So right now, today, I'm in Cuenca,
Okay.
Ecuador, which right the most popular expat city in all of South America.
Yeah.
Right? People love this place. I'm
Oh, it's
not a fan of
gorgeous.
it is, and friendly people. It's safe. The weather is perfect. There's no bugs, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of things. Um, if I can just unpack that a little, I'm in Cuenca. I don't like coming here. To be fair, it's great. I understand why people like it. I just like being more in the campo and the countryside and up in the mountains.
Yeah.
So I'm here. I'm here to catch up on things. So I did a chiropractic appointment. I had my teeth cleaned. There's stuff here that I can find and buy easily that's not so easily available in other parts of the country.
Okay.
So it's a very convenient place. A lot of the professionals, health professionals, lawyers, whatever you need, they have lived and studied in the States, so they speak English. They
Hmm.
understand American culture. So it's a very non-threatening place for expats to come.
Okay.
And like I said, not a huge fan of the city, but when I need to get stuff done, I can knock out everything I need in about a week.
Not sure which country is the best fit for your move abroad? The Ideal Destination Finder takes the guesswork out of the process. It's a customized 22-question assessment that reveals your top 3 destinations based on your lifestyle, priorities, and budget. Instead of spending months researching and second-guessing, you'll get a clear, personalized shortlist to guide your next step abroad. And it could save you thousands by avoiding the wrong move. You can get started now at adventurefreaks.com. Just scroll down a little bit and you'll see the Ideal Destination Finder on the left. Just click it and start the assessment. I also put the link in the description, or you can click the QR code above. Now let's get back to the video. So that's kind of interesting to hear when you're from Toronto and you're not a huge fan of the city. But I'll tell you what's really fascinating about, and I love Toronto. It's a great city. It's a beautiful city. And I've been there a few times. It's so expensive now. And that's, like I was reading probably even a couple years ago where the average 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Toronto now is like $1.1 million. That's like even out 30 minutes. I mean, it's like the outskirts. It's crazy. And there's so many people from Canada now that are exploring overseas options too and getting out because it's almost like they're kicking them out. People can't afford to live there.
Yeah. Yeah. The basically the way I see it, anybody under 40, if you want to buy a house in Toronto, unless, grandma and grandpa or mom and dad will you their house when they shuffle off this mortal coil, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So like 1.1 million Canadian dollars, let's say it's somewhere around 800,000 US dollars. And that's not a really nice house. That's just an average house.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's going to need some work to make it not livable, but enjoyable.
Okay. So let me back up a little bit. So I'm like you. I love Latin America. I've been all over it. It's amazing. So when you decided to say, okay, I got my shoulders injured, I can figure out how to do this early. I'm getting out, I can retire early. Did you explore any other countries first, or did you go directly to Ecuador?
So at that point, I went directly to Ecuador, but I should probably say that probably 30 years ago, Costa Rica would have been my first choice. And I was researching and checking it out and what would I have to do? What are the requirements? I was in my 20s at the time. So this is way too much work. Maybe at some point in the future, I'll do this. Nicaragua is my first choice, to be honest. Love that place and not dissimilar to Ecuador.
Yeah.
Similar culture. They speak Spanish, part of Central America, 2 coasts, not just the one like here. But my issue with Nicaragua is the power structure. Like the government is incredibly harsh on their own population. If
Yeah.
you go there as an expat, you'll be fine, right? They're not going to mess with the expats. But
Yes.
for moral issues, I can't get past that. Like I would feel bad living in a country where I know that the locals are being treated like second-class citizens while I'm living like a king.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it's certainly one place. I just did a podcast on Nicaragua. I think it's the last country in Central America where you could really live large for not a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it has a lot to do with the government structure there too. And so it's a good point. All right. So when did you move down to Ecuador?
Arrived here November 17th, 2022.
In 2022. Okay, so you've been down there for 3 years.
Right.
Okay, so then you had to obtain some kind of visa. Which
Correct.
visa did you obtain, and what were the requirements? Especially the viewers always want to know what's helpful is how much money they need to show as proof of income to move there.
Right. So I'll give you sort of the big picture. This is not legal advice or, immigration advice, but this will give you an idea to get you in the ballpark. So if you were to come down here 8 or 10 years ago, I think all you needed to show was $500 of monthly income.
Hmm.
And then it changed. The government changed and that tripled overnight. So it's right now, the basic monthly salary is, I think it's 470 US dollars.
Hmm.
And the amount they want you to prove is 3 times that. So a little over $1,400 every month.
Okay.
There's I think there's 7 different visas. There's multiple. So there's a rentista visa. If you like, I own properties, rental properties in Canada. If that income meets that threshold, okay, you're in.
Yeah.
15, let's call it $100. There's the retirement visa, which would be more focused on a pension. There is one that, and I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but if you have a degree from a recognized college or university that was done in person, this is a big thing. It can't be done remotely. It has to be done in person.
Hmm.
And the Ecuadorian authorities recognize the institution and the course of study, then you can use that as your paperwork to get in. And they're going to want to see again that $1,500, let's call it, it's a little less, but $1,500 of monthly income.
Okay.
And that's pretty common across the region. It's a little
Yeah.
more in Costa Rica, right? But that ballpark,
Hmm.
and it may sound like a daunting number to a lot of people, but once you prove that, once they've gone through and you show it's either 3 or 6 months of bank records to show that deposit, they don't care where the money's coming in from. I'm
Yeah.
not suggesting you do anything illegal or untoward, but if
Yeah.
you can have $1,500 showing up in your bank account on a bank statement, you're golden,
Yeah. Okay. So
right?
what visa did you apply for?
I applied for the investor visa.
Okay.
So that one's a little different. I want to say there's 3 things you can do. You can buy a property down here. So that is 100 times the basic monthly income, which again, 470 right now. So 47,000 US dollars. You can take that money and put it into what's called a dematerialized CD. So a certificate of deposit that is held at the central bank of Ecuador.
Okay.
And that's for your temporary visa. Or you can buy a property that is assessed at least $47,000. And this, I'm not 100% on this because these things change not infrequently. You could also invest that money in an Ecuadorian company. That would be like that. I have a really high risk tolerance, but for me, that's a little beyond the pale. So I went with the dematerialized CD option, and that money is locked away for 2 years. You cannot touch it. So make sure that's sitting there, and you can get the interest off that every month. Pinky, who was on recently in the episode from
Yeah.
Guayaquil, she
Yes.
mentioned about CDs. So about a year ago, I had a couple CDs down here. One was at 8% and one was at 10%. And if I would have been thinking, I would have locked that 10% down for as long as they would let me, because the rates have come off now to where they're between 5 and 7-ish.
Okay.
Not bad, but not as good as 10, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing there, if you lock those CDs down for at least 6 months, they don't take any taxes out of it.
Okay. So for this investor visa that you did, how much again did you have to put into the CD? What's the
At the
minimum?
time, at the time it was 45,000 because
Okay.
the monthly wage goes up a little bit every year.
Okay. So you
So
chose that avenue because you had a little cash in the bank, but so you transferred this money from Canada, you wire transferred it into a bank in Ecuador.
right.
What bank did you choose?
Well, it was more what bank did the immigration lawyer choose for me. So
Gotcha.
it's a cooperativa, so like a credit union that here in Cuenca, like you can't avoid it. They market and advertise aggressively. A lot of the expats go there. The acronym is JEP, JEP. The full name, I don't know, Juventud, whatever, de Ecuador or something. But it's one of the, somebody recently told me at a different cooperativa, it is the second largest cooperativa in all of South America.
Okay. All right.
So, and
Interesting.
here, sorry, another thing is they, I want to mention this because this is where people get hung up. In the States, you have FDIC, right? The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation,
Hmm.
where you insured up to, let's say, $250,000 per person per institution, whatever it is. Down here, they have a similar thing. It's called COSEDE, but the amount that you're insured up to is only $32,000. And that's segmento uno. So that's like the top tier organizations. And I think there's 5 levels, and the bottom one will insure you up to 5,000. So
Okay.
if you have, right, the CD with the central bank, I wasn't too concerned about because it's the central bank, and okay, like it's over the $32,000 threshold, but I'm willing to roll the dice and take that risk. Once
Hmm.
you get that money back, you could split that up and move it into 2 different cooperativas or banks or whatever you want to stay under that $32,000 threshold.
Hmm.
And if I can go a little deeper on that, recently in July, one of the cooperativas down here was shut down by the regulator who had been working with them for 2 years. This is 98,000 members of this thing. And a lot of people had their lives financially turned upside down because all of a sudden it's like flicking a switch. Okay, these guys are done.
Hmm.
It took about a month before people could have access to their funds, which down here was really fast. And for people that were under the $32,000 threshold, they got their full money back. You had to go in person and fill out the forms and do all the things, but they had access to that capital. If you had more than that, now you have to wait for the assets to be liquidated, and whatever money's left over will be distributed to the account holders if there's
Yeah.
anything left. Right? You might get everything, you might get a little bit, you might not get anything. Who knows?
Hmm.
And this is super important too. I avoided that whole mess, and I did a video on this by saying I went into the bank and I asked for the rating sheet that shows you how this one was specifically for the cooperativas. They were rated the 42 biggest in the country, double A, triple A, double B, minus whatever. And the person that gave me this at the bank, he didn't tell me don't go to this institution because they can't really do that here. But he said if when you're looking at these numbers, you see a lot of negatives in those columns, I would suggest not doing business with those. And CREA, CREA, was the cooperativa that crashed. They had negatives all across the board. So based on that, despite other expats saying, oh, I've been there for years and it's great and they're really friendly, like I need to know they're stable because too big to fail doesn't exist down here. You really need to pay attention to what's going on.
So there is a risk. There's definitely a
Yeah.
risk, and you need to do your research. So you really, I mean, that's it takes a lot of courage to like say, I'm going to stick the money that I've made and worked my butt off in Toronto all these years and put it in a bank. So you really had to have some faith in this lawyer that you were working with too.
Yes. Yeah. Let me say the immigration process, we got through it. There were a couple of hiccups. Communication wasn't as clear as I'm used to in the West, but after being down here for 3 years, you realize, look, I'm not going to change the culture here. Tiempo Latino is never going away, and I can fight it, like trying to push the river and convince people they need to be on time, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So you just at point surrender and go, look, this is the way things go down here. I like life down here on average, in every meaningful way to me, much better than I did living up north.
Yeah.
And this is just part of the territory, right? You give and take. Like I said, Tiempo Latino, the rules are a little bit different, the culture is different, but a lot of those differences for me are better. It's a plus versus a minus. And for Tiempo Latino and some other frustrating things that happen down here, on the whole, I am way happier and healthier down here. Like Ramona was on yesterday
Yeah.
in Uruguay, right? And she was talking about she wasn't in a great state of mind when she got down there and had some health issues and mental health. And I was exactly the same way when I got down here. Like if I stay in Canada, I'm either going to end up in jail or I'm going to be dead, right? Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't a good place.
When you say that, I mean, what was it about? What was going on in Canada at the time that was making you feel like that? Because a lot of people in the US feel that way, but a lot of people don't think that people in the US are going through the same thing. And a lot of people are unaware of how many Canadians are actually leaving Canada as well. So what do you think contributed to that feeling for you in Canada?
I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in that. I had traveled enough to see how people lived in other parts of the world, and they didn't have like the material stuff that we take for granted in the West. They didn't have anything nice,
Yeah.
right? And kids sometimes running around naked, and it's a lean-to shack, but they had what they needed to survive, and they were happy.
Right.
And I would just look at my life just in general. I mean, specifically lockdowns, super not a fan. And it wasn't just Canada, but a lot of countries around the world. There was how would you say, never let a good crisis go to waste, I think is the quote. So, hey, here's this thing, right? I'm not going to mention it on here in case we, trigger any censors or whatever, but everybody knows why things shut down. And, oh, hey, we can actually tell people that we're doing this for their safety, right? Oh, well, you want to be safe, don't you? Like, well, that's why we're stomping on your rights. There was the trucker convoy in Canada,
Yeah.
which I wasn't a part of that, but I know people who were, and I saw what was going on and said, okay, they're peacefully protesting. And then you would see how it was twisted around in the news and like, okay, now it's fear porn and these people are terrorists and this and that. And none of that was true. But when you can have the don't want to sound too conspiratorial here, but let's just say the government is in cahoots with the CBC, the big broadcasting network in Canada. So, hey,
Yeah.
we need this presented in this way with this kind of spin so that we can further our interests and people aren't going to
It's
push back on us. So,
yeah. It's such a common theme today. You know,
yeah,
you talk with people that have left UK, Australia, US, Canada, and the theme is the same. You know, just a lack of trust, trusting your government and trusting media. It's a big theme that's happening, and there's just a lot of people that are fed up and they're finding alternatives and they're finding more simpler, beautiful places where they can move to, and you don't get that.
right. Like, I'm not going to say Ecuador is perfect, but I haven't been to a country that is.
Right.
But I would say, so my first two visits down here before, everything went off the rails, it was 2019 and 2020. I left here on March 1st, 2020, and I mean, the pandemic was real here. There was, I'm not going to go into it because it's pretty graphic, but a lot of people were dying, and it was overwhelming the ability of the health system and I guess the authorities to maintain, right? You've got all these bodies and we've got to do something with them, but we don't have the capacity to do things. And there's the heat and like things just got really bad. I
Yeah.
got out of here right before everything shut down. I know guys that got trapped down here, one South African guy and another Polish guy. They didn't realize how bad things were getting. And when they went to leave, like, well, now you're stuck here, right?
Hmm.
Nobody's leaving free. You can't do anything. And they, I mean, they rolled with it, right? You have to, if you're going to do that kind of travel, you're going to have to be flexible and realize I'm not going to get everything I want all the time.
Yeah.
Let's focus on like what's really important to me and make those things happen. And the other stuff, you just, like I said, you just surrender and roll with it.
Yeah.
So the short answer, I guess, is things had been getting worse every year in Canada. Affordability certainly was an issue. I was kind of on the other side of that in the great financial crisis, like 2007, 2008. I had been studying real estate investing for years and years and finally said, look, like, you know what to do, just go and do it. So I bought a bunch of houses, fixed them up, rented them out, and I still own most of them today.
Hmm.
So I had a solid financial basis,
Hmm.
and I wasn't worried about the money. I knew that it cost very little to live down here. The cost of living in Canada was too much. You have a lot more freedom down here. There's laws and rules, but they don't really have the same enforcement that you have in the West. Nobody's going to jail here because they posted something on Facebook, right? Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Yeah. Where did you buy your houses at?
Outside of Toronto. So
Okay.
for anybody that knows the area, Hamilton is maybe an hour, 45 minutes outside of Toronto to the west, and Kitchener. And I actually
Okay.
bought a foreclosure in the States up in upstate New York, near in Chautauqua.
Okay.
That's a whole other adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you rent those out. Okay.
So my real estate portfolio in Canada carries itself. The rents pay for everything. There's a bit of money left over, so I can build up a slush fund for when there's an emergency. And hopefully my tenants aren't watching this, but at some point I'm going to be selling those. Now
Uh-huh.
that I'm very comfortable down here, and I've got the temporary visa, I knocked that out, and now I'm working on permanent visa, and that'll be done about this time next year. I should have all my time in, and then I don't know that Ecuador is going to be the place I end up putting down roots. Like, I love it here, and I've been all over the country multiple times. But I want to check out some other countries in the region, and I will at some point establish a home base. But what I'm doing right now makes it just way too enjoyable to be. I don't mean this as a pejorative, but like traveling around like a gypsy, like the
Yeah.
romantic note of not having a home and just being able to pick up and leave. And hey, I feel like going to the mountains for a couple months, or I want to
Yeah.
go to the coast, right?
Yeah, well, let's dive into that now because again, you are living differently than most people choose to live when they retire or live abroad. So let's dive into this. You said that you're just stopping off in Cuenca, which is a gorgeous city in Ecuador. Many people choose Cuenca because it's so beautiful, but you're just stopping off to take care of some things. You know, get your teeth cleaned, do some other things, and then you're gonna. So how are you living in Ecuador, and where are you living? Tell us what's going on.
Okay, this I would So I would ask people to use what I call the Bruce Lee approach with this. A lot of the numbers I'm going to drop, you're going to say that that's impossible. Like there's no way anybody could do this. The Bruce Lee approach for me is three things. Anytime I encounter new information, I take what's useful I discard what isn't, and I add what is uniquely my own. So let me start with when I first came to Ecuador, November 2022. I was mostly going through Airbnbs, sort of figuring out how do I get around, where do I go to get groceries, like just the basic everyday stuff. And I started in Cuenca because that's where the immigration lawyer was. And as an aside, in that meeting, she said, "Oh, I can set you up with somebody to help you find a place to buy or rent an apartment or whatever." And I said, "Look, as soon as this paperwork's done, I'm on a bus out of the city. I really don't want to be here right now." And again, Cuenca is a lovely place, but I just wanted to get out into more wild parts of the country. So in December, which was my first month here, I tracked all my expenses. It was over $500. And I went along and I started asking myself, like, wait a minute, what could I do to minimize or eliminate my accommodations expense and food? And I'm probably not going to be able to eliminate them, but my Airbnb bill, I guess, for the month of December was over $300. About, let's say, 60% of my budget for that month. So I started looking around. I enjoyed being retired. I was traveling, doing whatever I wanted. And within 3 months, like I was just looking at this going, if I have to do this for the next 40 years, I'm not going to make it. I am bored out of my mind. I have all the freedom to do everything I want, but it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm legal to work, but I didn't want a job because that means I have to park myself in a location. And I was working remotely at the time, a few hours a week. But I thought, okay, what else can I do? So I started looking around and I stumbled into volunteer work and I found some listings down here. And it was the first couple were basically, we need people to help us with this thing. So come here on an organic farm, let's say, and we'll provide room and board. You'll work X amount of hours per week and you need to pay us like $10 a day or something for food and room and board. I'm like, well, if I'm working for free, there's going to be an exchange of value coming back to me as opposed to I'm going to work for free and I'm going to pay to live here. Like that, it made no sense to me.
Right.
I kept looking and like there has to be something, right? And I was aware of woofing, like the organic farm volunteering work, and I ended up totally by accident finding something called Workaway. So the site for anybody, and I'm not shilling for Workaway. They don't compensate me in any way. If anybody from Workaway is watching this, I'm open to being compensated, but like I don't get anything. So it's workaway.info, and essentially it's a platform where you have hosts and volunteers. The hosts, and they're in about 170 countries around the world, probably an important point to mention. The hosts can post their opportunity, like I need somebody to help me with gardening or animal care or whatever it is, provided it fits with all the fits within the restrictions of the site, like the community guidelines and there's rules and things, which in Latin America usually are not followed very well, so people are removed. But if you follow those regulations, you can post your opportunity, and then me as a volunteer, I have to pay for a membership to get access to those listings.
Mm-hmm.
So my first year is like $50, right? Okay, let's test this out. $50, I'll roll the dice. If it doesn't work, it's $50 I wasted, who cares? But if it does work, now I'm looking at, I'll be exchanging my time and effort and expertise in exchange for room and board.
Mm-hmm.
And for $50, like, I mean, do the math, right? $50 for the year, I make that back in the first month.
Sure.
So what it turned into over time, and I will say I'm doing this in a very extreme fashion where I've probably taken maybe a week off since August, right? I've just been
Okay.
hopping from one to the next to the next. Basically, the place I'm at right now is also on Workaway. This is it's a pretty popular place for expats. It's called the Otorongo Apartments. It's about a 10-minute walk from downtown. They needed help with some gardening, and I did some painting, and I'll be doing some other renovation stuff. All simple stuff I enjoy doing. And in exchange for that, I get this cozy little apartment 10 minutes away from the core. They don't provide food here, and that varies from listing to listing. But
Mm-hmm.
where I started in December 2022, when I was over $500, which isn't a lot of money, last month I spent under $70 because I
Mm-hmm.
was volunteering, right? And I'm not going to say every month I spend $70 because I can tell you after being to the dentist and the chiropractor and
Yeah.
buying things, I'm going to be closer to 300 this month. But just to throw out some numbers, and this again, take what's useful, discard what isn't. In 2023, I think in April, I started volunteering. And I did it for a bit, and then I travel on my own, then I do it for a bit, and I was still working out the kinks in the system. I spent just under 3,800 bucks for the year. 2024, I looked at the system. Okay, how can I make this even better? Like, what can I do to improve this? Still have a good quality of life. And the thing with volunteering, just to get away from the numbers for a second, you're eating meals with people, you're living in their home, you're interacting with them every day. So if you're staying in a hotel or a hostel, you get one experience of traveling. When you're
Yeah.
living with people, it's full immersion, right?
Hmm.
I like that part of the system. And I thought, okay, 2024, what can I do? And I came in under 2,450 bucks for the year. And this year, 2025, we're about 5 weeks from finishing the year. I'll come in around $2,000 for the entire year.
Okay. So you're primarily working through this platform called Workaway, and
Right.
there's a variety of people all over Ecuador that are looking for people to volunteer and provide some kind of assistance.
Yeah.
It could be pet sitting, it could be painting, it could be anything.
Yeah.
And so then you have this profile. People find your profile. You reach out to them. If you see something that's interesting, you start communicating, boom, and it lands you in the next location where you get to pretty much stay there for free and do the work, but they don't pay you. They just give you a place to stay for free.
Correct.
Okay.
This is the way I look at it. It's basically a barter system where there's an exchange of value, but there's not an exchange of currency or money, right? So they need help with something, especially when I go to more remote regions. The Let's say they need some maintenance, like some sort of renovation to whatever. I did a project about a year ago on a big metal gate that was the entrance to this farm, and it was
Hmm.
in decent shape, but it had like somehow there were plants growing on this metal gate. It was starting to rust. So I go, look, I can go down there, clean that up, paint it. I just need these materials. And it took me a couple weeks. It was very rural, very difficult. There was the closest water supply was about, half a kilometer up the hill, and that was the water for the cows. So
Hmm.
as I'm cleaning it, keep going up. It's very old school, right? Like chop wood, carry water, old
Yeah.
school. But at the end of it, the gate looked brand new. They couldn't find anybody in that area that could do that work, even if they had the money to pay to have that done. So it added value to them, and I
Hmm.
enjoyed doing that work. And I had a place to stay, and they were feeding me, and they would take me out. Hey, we're going to visit our friends. Or another thing I've done a couple of. They're called mingas. So a minga is basically like a community volunteer project that would take place on a day or maybe over a couple days. The community gets together. We want to work on this project. Here's the money for the materials. Here's the other tools that we need to do it. Here's a sort of plan, and nothing is ever planned down here. But you show up on site, everybody pitches in, and it's for the betterment. Everybody benefits from this, and that's kind of the model that I use, where it's a service-based model. I'm helping people to do things they either can't do or can't find someone to do, and in
Hmm.
exchange, I get to travel around and live basically. It's I've unlocked infinite travel is the way that I look at it.
Yeah. Okay, so share with us a little bit about Steve, about some of the situations that you've or the work situations that you've agreed to do um, through this platform, and where was it done at? Like, what cities have you experienced? Where has it taken you? It sounds like this is offered all over the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about how you're doing that. And also the other big important thing about people always are concerned about traveling through Latin America. Is it safe? Do you feel comfortable? How are you traveling? Are you get jumping on a bus? Are you jumping on a train? Where have you stayed? Have any of them stood out? Have you stayed in like remarkable places?
Let me open with this. When I first found Workaway, when you look at the site, it's all kids, right? Like late 20s or early 20s, late teens kind of thing. And I thought,
Yeah.
like, am I too old? Like, have I aged out of this already
Yeah.
at 51 years old? And I thought, okay, I don't know. It doesn't say like there's an age limit. And the oldest volunteer that I met was, I want to say like 68 or something. Great
Okay.
guy. And he had incredible stories. Like this Romanian, retired Romanian mathematics professor, like
Wow.
unbelievable. So for me, I set up my profile, this, I have these skills, I've run businesses, I've done all this stuff. So when it's almost like shooting fish in a barrel, I guess, in terms of if I'm the 20-year-old me, I don't have life experience, I don't have a lot of skills, I have a lot of energy, and I'm willing to help people, but I don't really have any specific skills I can offer.
Yes.
But if you are younger, anything, because I mean these kids grew up, I call them kids, I'm in my 50s, right? But they grew up with the internet, they know how to do a lot of social media stuff, and there's a lot of people down here that need help with that. So it's not like
Yes.
they don't have skills, they just have different skills. So anyways, I did up my profile, arranged to stay on the coast, and before that came through, somebody else reached out to me and said, hey, we saw your profile, would you like to come here? So I did, and I was still learning the ropes. That was a situation where there were multiple volunteers. At this stage of my life, I am very happy if I'm the only volunteer or there's maybe one other.
Hmm.
So I look for like that. In terms of traveling around the country, everything's by bus. Super
Okay.
accessible. In my experience, very safe. I don't take night buses anymore. I can't sleep on a bus. And just when the sun goes down, it's like that's when bad things are going to happen. So if you can, avoid traveling at night anywhere.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh, I've been here 3 years. I haven't had anything like any issues with anybody at all, but I tend to be very street smart, and I tend to like Pinky was talking about in her podcast, and like she gives off this vibe. Don't mess with me. So that's kind of I don't want to be adversarial to people, but I just let people know I'm not your mark, right? Find somebody else to pick on.
Hmm.
So I did that first volunteer opportunity, learned a bit more about it, put some of the pieces together, and just gradually built on that going forward. I learned things. The hosts can rate the volunteers, and the volunteers can rate the hosts. It's better to wait until after everything's over. So if you find somebody that's a brand new listing, and at any given time, there's about 300 active listings here in Ecuador. They're not all created equal any more than all the volunteers are created equal.
Hmm.
So I would look around for somebody, especially initially, that had a lot, like let's say 20 or more really good feedbacks on their
Hmm.
site over a period of years. And it made it difficult because during the pandemic, nobody was doing anything. So there was a gap, from whatever 2020 up until mid 22 or whatever it was. But on that basis, if they had good feedback and it went both ways, like the host liked the volunteer and the volunteer liked the host, like, okay, this is probably a good thing to check into. And that's how I would kind of vet people. And then I would choose an area of the country. So, okay, it's really rainy up north right now. I don't want to be there. Maybe I go to the coast, or
Yeah.
maybe I go right down to the rainforest or the jungle. Or I basically mapped out itineraries based on what was available in that area. Like I want to go to this place. Are there any volunteer opportunities? And if
I
there
see.
weren't, I would book, right? I'd book an Airbnb. And if there were, I'd go and check it out. And I've had, by and large, I think I've done about 25 of these things so
Hmm.
far, and I've returned to some of them like multiple times. So in the process of doing this, another fringe benefit is I've built up a network of contacts literally all over the country. So I'm in Cuenca. I'm kind of jonesing to get out because I've done everything I need to do.
Yeah.
And I was looking at going to the jungle, right? I want to go back to the Amazon. And I reached out to an opportunity. If you're reaching out to locals, it's probably going to take a week or two before they get back to you. It's again, Tiempo Latino. If you're reaching out and the host is an expat, you're probably going to hear back within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So the place I was looking at didn't work out. Okay, we don't have availability next month, but in January, if you want, you can come here. And I wrote back and said, well, in January, my plan is to be in Colombia. I want to take this system across the border and stress test it up there and see how the numbers work out and see if my system can withstand, right, coming up against a new country, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead, I had volunteered at a different place in the Amazon, and I just reached out to that guy through WhatsApp and said, hey, I'm available. If you have availability, I'm looking at early to kind of late, like before Christmas, December. And if not, just let me know because I have other people I can go and see and stuff I can do.
Yeah.
So just from having done it so long and from coming up with a system that works and figuring out the stuff that doesn't work and staying away from things that I know aren't going to be a fit. I'm not going to be interested in working in a hostel. I get a lot of invites from a lot of different parts all over the country to come and teach English. And I actually have a TESOL certificate because that was something when I was younger that I decided, hey, I want to get this and be able to travel and teach. And before I did that, something else came through that was better. But basically, the system that I came up with allows me very easily to reach out to people that I know are a good fit because I've already volunteered with them, or
Hmm.
they're in an area that I want to explore. And I have basically I have afternoons. So my typical day would be work from like 8 until noon or 8 until 1, something like that. Then we have lunch. The rest of the day is mine. Weekends are mine. They're flexible. Like, hey, I'd like to go somewhere for a 3-day weekend. Could I work an extra Saturday? And like, I'm like, yeah, just don't worry about it, right? You're doing really good work. We like, we get along. Everything's good, and you can stay.
Hmm.
Another thing, if people want to do this, usually I'll agree to about 2 weeks up front, right? So when you're going back and forth with the host, let's start with 2 weeks, see if it's a good fit. That's exactly what happened here. And I said, by the way, I'm available longer because I knew there was stuff I needed to do in Cuenca. And if I could stay here 3 weeks, I could knock everything out. So they said, we're kind of new to this. Let's try 2 weeks and see if it's a fit. And then, we'll go from there. And within 3 days, they said, yeah, you could stay here a month and longer if you want, or, you can leave. We're not trying to trap you here,
Yeah.
but it's a good, we like what you're doing. And this is back to the age thing. Because I'm in my 50s instead of my 20s, I'm more reliable. I'm not going to be out the night before carousing and sleep till noon the next day and be
Right.
chuchak, they call it here, like hungover, or
Yeah.
I'm able to work. So it's age is not a liability in terms of the
No.
volunteering I've been doing.
Yeah. It can absolutely be an asset. So you're in Cuenca with this volunteering experience right now, and you are basically working as a maintenance guy at a it's a what is it, a community where people rent or buy condos or
This is so it's an apartment complex, and
okay.
there's let's say there's two kinds of people here, basically all expats, and some of them are long-term tenants, really love the place, and the owners are fantastic, and like this, I'm good here. So you're not living in a high-rise condo, right? It's like a
Yeah.
two building with 15 units, and the other people that come here are doing exploratories, and they've heard about this place or seen this place, and they come down here. The hosts speak English, which is a huge thing. If you come here and you don't speak Spanish or you're not comfortable with your Spanish, that is something that's really helpful. The hosts have been in Cuenca forever. They know stuff. They can point you in the right direction. They've got their network, so it's a very easy place for people to come. Some people want a bit of a bigger place, or they want to be in a different area of the city, so they use this as their home base while they're looking for something more permanent.
Okay. And so if you had to pay per month for the apartment that you're living in this community, what would you pay?
I don't know exactly, but I would guess somewhere around 300 or 400 bucks.
Okay.
There's some big ones, there's some smaller ones. My chiropractor here rents a house. He's married to an Ecuadorian woman, so she's probably the one doing the negotiating. But he rents an entire house for $400 a month.
So let me ask you this, because you don't give me the impression that you're a guy that needs to be doing this. I
Right?
mean, you could potentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're still on a clock when you do this. When you're volunteering, that like these, you're going to work from 8 to noon or 8 to 1. You get the rest of the day free. But what if you're like, hey, I'll just pay to 300, and my full day is open. I can wake up when I want. I could go out when I want. So why aren't you doing that?
I did that like when I first got here, probably so December, January, February, about 4 months. I was doing that, and it was just killing me.
Yeah.
Since I was right in my early 20s, not my only, my biggest life goal was to get to a point where I had time freedom. And for me, that meant if I can get to a place where I have enough financial largesse, and I don't need to live large, material things are meaningless to me. Obviously, I wouldn't be living this way if I wanted a nice house and a fancy car and whatever else. But I'm much more interested in having freedom and being able to live life on my terms. But perhaps, I don't know, ironically, I like structure, and
Okay.
I like to know what I'm doing with my time is serving other people in meaningful ways. So it's like a service-based model. You could do that through a church. You could do that through any number of other organizations that organize the trips and take care of all the logistics. I
Yeah.
enjoy doing, right? I like doing that part. It's a challenge to me. Like, oh, let's see if I can, figure this out and crack the code. So for me, it ends up being a good fit, and they're flexible on the hours. Like this week, the hosts are not here. They
Hmm.
said, yeah, we're going to away, but their son is here on site to make sure things are good. And he said, can you cover the office, right? So if somebody comes to the door, you can unlock it if somebody needs something. and it's from like 7 until 10 p.m. or something on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. And I'm like, dude, whatever you need. Like, basically, I'm here to help you guys out any way that I can. And another thing, some of the experiences that I have on the road, like these guys are really into cycling. They have unbelievable all the gear, right? The fancy sunglasses and the nice helmets and the bike shirts and all that. And they took me out maybe 20 minutes, half an hour outside of town, and we went on this bike ride along the river. And like I never would have found that place on my own, right? There's no tours that go there. And probably the most, let's say, the most amazing thing that I've done in terms of volunteering, I was just on the coast in a tiny, tiny place called Sin Chow, which is for people that know the coast, is about an hour north of Salinas and maybe 20 minutes south of Montañita. It's
Hmm.
tucked in. He's the only gringo in town. Um, she was running or is running a, what would you call it, like a transformational health center.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I said, look, I teach yoga and meditation. If you want, whatever. They had a monk coming. This guy from Sri Lanka came to lead a Buddhist retreat in Ecuador in this tiny nothing of a place in October, and I was there for it. And he brought a clipping from I'm going to mess up this, the Sri Jaya Maha Bodhi tree in Sri Lanka. That tree is the oldest documented hand planted tree on Earth. It's 2,300 years old. That
Wow.
tree, that tree came from a clipping from the tree under which the Buddha sat and obtained enlightenment. Right? I'm taking them at their word at this, but I know that tree in Sri Lanka is 2,300 years old. So he brought this clipping, and we did a ceremony where we planted this sapling, this little cutting, on this property, and it's going to outlive all of us, ideally. And one of the people that came to take part of that ceremony was a retired Vietnamese doctor. And 50 years before, his father had taken part in this same ceremony in Vietnam in their hometown. So there was a lot of stuff converging there. But if I'm staying in a hostel, there is a 0% chance I'm going to have an experience like that. Right? That's
Hmm.
a once in a lifetime. And
Yeah.
for me, it was really significant, really significant.
Yeah.
So these are kind of the hidden gems, I guess. And it's not like, hey, every time I go volunteer, I have this life-changing experience,
Yeah.
but they're out there, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to find them unless you get out there and chase after them.
Yeah. It's truly an adventure that you're on, and it's a really great way to immerse yourself in a culture, obviously learn the language, and just really have a fulfilling experience of something new, because you're traveling all over and you're really feeling the pulse of the place, which is really cool. You mentioned that when you first got there, Steve, that you hired a lawyer.
Right,
There's a lot of people that don't do that because
right.
it's there. What so what are the benefits of doing that? We use our partner in Ecuador is Sarah Chaka. I don't, do you know her?
She's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, so we've partnered with Sarah, and then we work with Jason Scott because he does a lot of real estate and exploratory tours in Cuenca. Are you familiar with Jason?
No,
Called Yapa
but
Tree. His company is called Yapa
oh,
Tree.
okay, yeah, that I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, he's been down there for quite a while. Um, but they're both great. But Mike, I'm curious because I do know a lot of people that still do the DIY thing. They run into complications when they try to do the immigration on their own. But I'm curious
Yeah.
why you chose immediately to go through a lawyer.
I talked to other people that had done it. You can DIY. I'm huge hands-on, like with all my properties. When I'm visiting Canada, I'm there like fixing stuff and doing things. I like to play an active role in the process, but I also know where my limitations are. And when it comes to any kind of government bureaucracy, you could do like you get there's a name for it, like a visa enabler or a visa handler, something like that. I prefer to go the full route, go with the immigration lawyer. They've been doing this forever. She was trained in the States, Sarah. She speaks English, very professional, very accessible. When I first reached out to her, I didn't realize, I think it was Labor Day weekend in North America, and it was a holiday here too. So I was writing her these emails, and I was getting very detailed responses back right away, which I thought, like, how busy is this immigration lawyer? Like, is this a red flag that I'm? But it
Yeah.
turns out it was a holiday, and she just chose, like, here, I'll help this guy out. So I asked her a billion questions, right? Like, just because I wanted to verify things I had found online,
Did you
and it
use
just,
Steve? Did you use Sarah?
yeah,
Oh, you use Sarah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so funny.
There's so just as an aside, I'll throw out like some crumbs here. If people want to come to Cuenca and you want to do a bit of research beforehand, if you go on Facebook and find, I think it's like Cuenca expats or
Yeah.
something, that group is phenomenal. There's
Yeah.
people on that group that have been here for decades,
Hmm.
and they will give you the straight, like when you're interviewing people on your channel, there's no theory, right? I'm living here. This is my actual life. Here's what's going on. That platform I found to be the same. And another one is Cuenca High Life, which is a an English language online newsletter kind of thing, where they'll give you information about what's going on in Cuenca. But in terms
Hmm.
of if you're trying to get any kind of visa, do any kind of thing with citizenship or anything, like, just save yourself the headaches. Oh my God, it costs this much, right? Like I think for her, for the entire the 5 year process basically of temporary through permanent visa was, I want to say, $2,500. And
Yeah.
people are like, oh my God. And you could find people that do it for less, sure.
Yeah.
But look at their track record, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I've heard horror stories from other people that came here. And let's be honest, a lot of people come to Ecuador because it's incredibly cheap. And
Yeah.
they think that you can cut corners on these interactions with the government. And yeah, you can. But if you fill out a form incorrectly or do something wrong or don't have the right information, here's the stack of papers. Here's your application at the bottom.
Yeah.
If you have a lawyer, somebody that knows the system and tells you be here at this time and you need this and has everything lined up and you just show up and sign the paper, I can't put a price on that peace of mind, right? I'm all about freedom and
Yeah.
enjoying my life here. And if I'm fighting with the government, I am not going to have any of those things. So it's a
Yeah.
trade-off.
It is. And when you're going to a different country that speaks a different language, a lot of the documentation needs to be translated. And so I'm the same way. I would definitely go through an immigration lawyer to handle all that, especially the translation and everything. So you're not messing something up and then you got to reschedule and go back. And it can be complicated. Where have you been in Ecuador that's really stood out for you?
So usually when you're talking to the host, they'll ask you a bunch of questions, and one of them is, "What's your favorite part of Ecuador so far?" And I have two. They're completely different. One is up in the Intag Valley. So when I tell them, "Yeah, I love Intag," they're like, "What is that?" Like they've never heard of it, right?
Yeah.
A fairly remote part. It's getting towards the border of Colombia, not quite all the way there, but it's a lot of farms, a lot of people that are very independent, very freedom oriented. There's expats that have farms up there, but there's a lot of locals too, and they're very resilient and resourceful, and they know how to live off the land. And I found that very appealing, very I don't want to say blunt, but
Yeah.
direct.
Yeah.
Right? There's no facade, no, hey, we're gonna, have the what do they call it, the niceties of social intercourse or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
They'll tell you what they think. Um, I love it up there. It's very natural. Not a lot of people. You're surrounded by nature. There's hikes and all kinds of stuff. The weather up there is really good, and especially for farms, like it's really conducive to growing a lot of things. So Intag is one, and then on the total opposite end of that spectrum, the Amazon, specifically the areas around a city called Tena, which is in the jungle. So you're not like way deep in the Amazon, but you're in the Amazon region.
Hmm.
And there's a town near that called Misawai, which is becoming more popular with expats. Kind of
Yeah.
small, not a huge tourist destination, but if you're in Tana, you're definitely going to take a day trip. You might go rafting or kayaking or going through the trails, or you might do an overnight, some sort of a cultural immersion experience, whatever. There's a lot of stuff available there.
Yeah.
And again, very real people. It's not overrun with tourism. Like I worked on cruise ships for 15 years and I saw places like Tulum in Mexico and Playa del Carmen that went from tiny little fishing villages to I mean, it looked like a European city within a
Yeah.
couple of years. They were the fastest growing cities in the Americas for a couple of years. And it's just, that's not going to happen here anytime soon
Yeah.
in Intag, sure, and in some of these jungle areas. So I prefer to be in places that are more natural with, plants and animals and things and fewer people as opposed to being in a city.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you participated in an ayahuasca out there in the?
I had So I did that before I came. That was on one of my, I guess you call it exploratory, one of my short visits here. I did that. Not for everybody,
Yeah.
I will say that. Glad I did it, right?
Yeah.
And it's it's a sacred thing, and that's another thing. You have to be careful with who you choose
Yeah.
to sign up for, right? And make sure it's not the big overrun touristy thing. I have friends down here as expats that brew their own ayahuasca, and they'll have a shaman come in and run their own group for a lot less money and a more authentic experience than you'll get for the gringo version.
Yeah.
Um, there's also San Pedro, which is medicine from a cactus. That
Yep.
one, I had a bad trip on that. It was like a bad acid trip, like 13 hours, and I was still, my head was fine,
Yeah.
but and I don't scare anyone from trying to do this. I think the guy gave me too much because as soon as I drank it, my host went to him and was like, hey, maybe half that next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I couldn't move my body, so like I was moving like a robot. Like I couldn't do this. It was like this,
Right.
and the whole time I was very aware in my head, like my body, is this going to be the way it is? Like, is this temporary? Is this permanent? And I was kind of freaking out. So
Hmm.
San Pedro probably won't do again, but the ayahuasca and the temazcal and the ceremonies that go around those things are, it's like almost like a rite of passage here.
It is. Yeah.
Inti Raymi is probably the biggest ceremony they have here. That's up north in Cotacachi in June, towards the
What
end of
is it?
June.
What is it called?
Inti Raymi. The Raymis, there's four Raymis, and if I'll probably mess this up, but I think two of them are around the vernal and autumnal equinox, and the other two are around the solstices. Basically, every 3 months.
Okay.
Two are focused on the moon, two are focused on the sun. Inti Raymi is essentially, what do you call it, like a harvest festival that's been going on for hundreds of years, and for whatever reason, Cotacachi, I think, is where it started, that region, so that's where it is. The first time, so my first year here, I was working remotely. I rented a place in Cotacachi because I needed kind of like an office with reliable, electricity and internet access. And I went to go down to the plaza one day. So I was maybe 10 blocks from the plaza. And my host said, "Hey, are you going like downtown?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, be careful because there's a big festival going on there for the next 5 days, and sometimes people get shot and killed." I was like,
All right.
"What?" Like, nobody told me that. That wasn't on the brochure. What is this? So what it was is, for 3 days there's a big festival where the indigenous people, like the guys, come out and they're doing this kind of stomping dance, and they're dressed up in these gigantic black hats. It's a little, there's a bit of culture shock in that because there's like they'll have symbols on it. Like I saw a lot of swastikas. That doesn't mean, that it's not like the Hitler swastika. It means something else. I don't know what it means, but
Yeah.
there were symbols. So and they basically go around the plaza for hours and hours a day. There's a lot of alcohol involved, and sometimes there's some, what would you say, like family feuds have been going on for a long time.
Oh, I,
So add alcohol, right? And here we go. So when I went there, the first year, there's police helicopters up flying over the site. There's cops and military in body armor with the huge shields. Nothing happened, right? But they were there to make sure that nothing happened.
yeah.
So my first day there, you couldn't move. I mean, it's just jam packed. And the day before, I was in the plaza, and it's like you could almost see tumbleweeds like rolling across because there was nobody there.
Uh-huh.
Um, so that goes on for 3 days, and then there's another 2 days where the women come out and it's their turn and they do dances, and that's a lot more, a lot less dangerous, let's say, and more
Sure.
civilized.
Yeah.
And I was invited, so I've been there every year. I make a point of going back to that every year because I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And the last time I was there, my host said, "Hey, do you want to come and take part in this?" I'm like, "Yeah, people get shot here sometimes. I don't want to, be the gringo that does the thing." It was like, "Oh my God, it's the most offensive thing you could do. Like, why are you doing that?" So I'm happy to sit back and watch and, shoot some videos and pictures because, like I said, I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Yeah. 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 That's fascinating. Okay. Well, that's great to know. The couple more questions. So based on what you're doing and traveling around, and you've been doing this and volunteering for what, 3 years now? 2 years?
About 2.5.
2.5 years. So people can actually live this way in Ecuador and spend how much per year?
Last year was under 2,450, and this year I'm on track for about 2,000. I don't think I can get below 2,000 unless I make it my goal to see how little money I can spend. But if I'm down here to enjoy my life, why would I curtail my experiences?
So you are living on like basically $200 a month.
Yeah,
And you're doing that through living in these places that people provide when you volunteer to help them and assist them in some way.
right.
And anybody can do this.
Yes, I think so. I think back to like the 60s when it was really common where people would get out of college or university and go, out west and, find themselves or go to Europe and bum around for months. By the time kids get out of school today, they're living with crushing student debt in a lot of cases,
Yeah.
and the cost of going to Europe, like it's just not an option. So I've met a lot of, let's say, European college age or just recently out of school people traveling, and they'll do 6 months, right? We
Yeah.
start in the most southern part of Argentina, and we're going up to Colombia, and they'll use Workaway or other platforms to do like I'm going to travel for a week and do this thing, and then we're going to volunteer here for a couple of weeks so we can stretch our limited travel budget. That was the demographic I thought this was for. And like I said, I've met some people my age in their 50s or 60s that are doing this, and they are having a blast.
Sure.
And I'm doing it extremely. So I'm doing it all the time, all year. And part of the reason, like, why is this guy in Ecuador? I wanted to get residency so I have an escape hatch out of the West,
Hmm.
but also I want, like I said, I want to be doing things that are service based and that give me, I feel good about doing these things. Whereas if I had a job, I wouldn't have the same kind of satisfaction.
Yeah.
But you could do this as much or as little as you want, and you don't have to do it in terms of travel. Like one of the takeaways I would hope people leave this with is what can I do in my own life to be serving somebody else? Like maybe 2 hours a month, I go and volunteer at a homeless shelter or a soup
Yeah.
kitchen, like the Humane Society, whatever your thing is. And if you decided, look, volunteering isn't for me, maybe it's for your kids, maybe it's for your grandkids.
Yeah.
And if none of that fits, you could be on the other side of this. You could be a host, right? You could have cultural exchanges coming to you, like, hey, I need some help with some gardening. Nobody really cares what it is. Like, I could use some help with this, and I'm happy I have an extra room, and we can share
Yeah.
meals, and I can learn about the world from somebody who's from somewhere else and sees things totally different than the way I do, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically limited only by your imagination. I just happen, I'm taking like, I'm a huge Frank Zappa fan, so I'm taking his approach where you take an idea to its logical extreme. So I'm pushing this to see how far can I push it before it breaks and
Yeah.
back it off, right? Stress test it. I have a system in place now that works really well. Like I said, in late December, early January, I'll take it to Colombia and try it there. And then this time next year, I should be done with my time commitments. This is the thing. I need to spend a lot of time in the country,
Yes.
and I could have a job. Don't want a job, or I don't know if I'm even employable at this point, to be honest. But if I can volunteer and serve people, I can also be putting in my time down here. I need to
Yeah.
do 6 months here towards permanent residency. Once that's done, I want to take this system and I'll go to Bolivia, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Who knows? Maybe I meet up with Ramona when I'm down there. Uruguay would be another place I would look at for residency after I've got this one locked down.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the new, it's like the new version of the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
It's very, it's like a new version of the Peace Corps. And you pick and choose various things that you feel that you can help people with, which is really awesome. And you get to experience this country in a way that you never even imagined. So it's really extraordinary, and it's a great way to do this. This is really really fantastic. Steve, what are you doing? Are you are you do you have access to the healthcare system? I know they have a public healthcare system there.
So I can. When I first came down and met with Sarah and talked to her about some things, I asked her a few questions. It came out in those questions that by the Constitution in Ecuador, if you show up at a hospital and you need medical attention, you cannot be refused.
Hmm.
Having said that, right, and I'm not suggesting people come down here and become a burden on the healthcare system because it's already overburdened.
Right.
So I had travel insurance when I came down here. I've had it like I've done dozens of trips through Central America and Southeast Asia and all over the world. I would always take that with me, and I never once needed it. And I'm at a point where I looked at my finances and went, okay, if I'm basically self-insuring at this point,
Okay. Okay.
and again, that's a very personal thing. At some point, as I get older, like I'm in my mid 50s, I'm in great health. That wasn't always the case, and maybe save that for another part. But basically, you have the access to the public system if you want, or access to private where you're going to get much better care, and it's not really that expensive. I play frisbee. There's just down the street, Parque de la Madre, at noon on Fridays. There's a group of aging hippies, let's call them, that show up with a big, hippie looking bag that's full of frisbees, and we just toss frisbees around for an hour. And I'll always hear from them about health insurance, about their various ailments and operations as they're getting up in their 70s and older and looking ahead. Okay, I want to. A big part of the appeal of Cuenca is you're going to get really good care. You can, like I am self-insured, you might not want to do that, but you can have access to health insurance. I can't speak to that with any authority. And at one point, that was a requirement for when you applied for residency, and somehow that was removed magically, like just before I showed up here. So, okay, I don't need this. I am willing to pay out of pocket to cover things because I have the ability to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the last thing I have, Steve, is that, we for the viewers that want to follow your journey and kind of, learn a little bit more about this, how do we do that? You're on YouTube. What's your channel?
I am. So the channel is Street Smart Travel.
Okay.
It's tiny. It's basically me and my camera. Like it is stripped down. If you're used to watching the caliber of videos that Ray puts out on his channel, probably don't check me out because it's literally me in a park, usually filming with my camera, some simple edits. I unpack my monthly budget numbers every month just to let people know what's going on. I focus on retirement, volunteering, simple living, especially, and just enjoying your life, right? They're very simple. I was blowing my brains out this weekend to get the website up, which is streetsmarttravel.com. It's functional. I got to go through and troubleshoot it, but I'm going to put some resources on there. And I will tell people when they get there, just so they're not freaked out. On the About Me page, I talk about my medical history. So October 6th of this year was the 25th anniversary of me being diagnosed with stage 4B cancer. Luckily, everything worked out. That took about a year and a half out of my life to
What if your next
figure
job
that out.
became your best job?
But I wanted to make sure, it is, yeah.
Most of us.
I want to make sure that
Doing what
people understand that when you go through a life event like that, it changes everything about your perspective of the world. I was 29 when I was diagnosed, and I don't want to go off on a huge rant, but the point is, when that was all done, I was very thoroughly convinced that I was not invincible and that at some point my time was going to run out. So I better make whatever I want to do in my life, make that a priority and go after it and do it, because I don't want to end up at the end of my life looking back and saying, wow, I regret not doing this. I wish I would have done this.
Yeah.
And you have people like Ramona and like Pinky who, especially older women coming down to these places, obviously they feel safe enough. They're going out there and they're living their best lives.
Yeah.
And to me, that's endlessly inspirational. Like so many people just think, oh my God, I can't travel. I can't do that because, right? Insert excuse here. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, I can't afford it. Oh, whatever. Anybody can do what I'm doing. And again, I'm doing a very extreme version of it. But if you work volunteering in along with travel, you could turn a 1 month trip into a 3 month trip on the same budget. So
Yeah.
there goes your excuse about money.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much, man. Well said. I just subscribed to your channel. Look forward to following this journey and also learning a little bit more about how you can live in these countries like Ecuador for 2,000 a year and giving back and having this incredible experience. It's really extraordinary. So thanks so much, man, for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great, Ray. I appreciate you having me on. I love the channel, and it's reality based, right? It's street smart. It's tested. These are people living in these places today. Here's their experience. They're loving their lives, as opposed to, oh, theoretically, or oh, I heard about this story. It's amazing to get that intel about people, boots on the ground. So you hear the good stuff and the not so good stuff, and you have a realistic expectation of what you're going to be facing if and when you take the plunge. And if you're thinking about this at all, I definitely get more into the videos that you've got on your channel. I'll pick like Uruguay and then I'll watch Ramona, or I'll pick Nicaragua and watch whatever's on there. And I get a lot of really helpful information that's informing my next moves, where I can take this system and try it in a different country, a different region, whatever. So I
Yeah. Yeah.
really appreciate you having me on. Hopefully people got value out of this. And again, take what's useful, discard what isn't, and add what is uniquely your own.
Well said, my friend. All right. Well, Steve, you have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Ray.